Hi everybody. Today's tutorial is how to make a tunnel card. This stamp set is from Close to My Heart. It's the April 2020 Stamp of the Month. And it's an adorable little set that has all sorts of images, fish, a fishbowl, shells, seaweed, coral. Adorable. So check that out at Close to My Heart, scrapmyheart.ctmh.com if you're interested. Just another little view of this stamp set. This really works well for a tunnel card, A, because it's an under the water, under the sea image set, and B, because they're small enough to actually fit into the tunnel here that we're making. The nice thing about this card is it's a 4x4 front, but it folds flat and fits into a 4.25 by 5.25 is the folded flat side, so it fits into a regular size envelope. And then you just pop it back up. I'm hoping you can see all of the dimension that something like this provides. It is adorable, and it's even a little interactive in that, you know, you can move the fish from side to side. Fun little card. Takes a little bit of work, but it's pretty easy. So let's show you what we have here today. First thing you'll need is a white piece of paper. You actually could make this a colored piece, the base itself. I chose to make the base on just white and then covered the front face with a colored piece of paper. This one was embossed with an embossing folder from Close to My Heart that had the scallops or the waves on it. And this one I actually stenciled little bubbles in it. I simply have a stencil of all sorts of different shapes and sizes of circles. I randomly stenciled on with a kind of a tone-on-tone kind of ink, bubbles in a varying pattern. So you can do either one, or you could even choose to use a pattern paper on the front of there if you have one that works out right for you. So as I said, you'll need a white piece of paper for the base. The base is 4.25 by 11, and you will score that sheet at 1 inch, 5.25, 6.25, and 10.5. So you're going to take your scoreboard and your bone folder and score at those locations. Okay. The next step then, well, the other things you'll need are the blues. You will need 5 different colors of blues. Here I chose, and you want to go in a varied tones, if that makes sense. Light to dark, basically. Okay, I've got those upside down here. Let's do this. I chose to use Carolina blue, and the nice thing about the Close to My Heart cardstock is one sheet of paper will give you 2 different tones. It's a double-sided piece of paper, a darker tone on one side and a lighter tone on the other, so that kind of doubled my usage here. I used Carolina the light side, Carolina the dark side, Bluebird light, Bluebird dark, and Sapphire. Okay, my other ones I use different colors, so whatever varying colors that you have. These are more of the mint and the down to the lagoon back in there. So whatever you have. My top piece, as you see, is the stenciled with the bubbles. Okay. So of your blues, you're going to cut a light color. The lightest color is going to go on the top. That's going to be 4.25 by 4.25. Your next blue, which happened to be the back side of this one, is going to be 4.25 by 4.75 minus a little smidgy. Okay. My husband loves when I use technical terms. He's a math teacher, and he loves that I cannot measure worth a darn. So what I did was I cut those at 4.75 minus about a 1/16. He told me what that is, and I don't remember, like 5/16 or something like that. I don't remember. I just go to 4 3/4 and pull it back about a 1/16, and I'll show you why that's important later. Your Bluebird light is going to be the same, 4 1/4 by 4 3/4 minus a 1/16, a little smidgy. Same with the Bluebird dark, 4 1/4 by 4 3/4 minus a smidge. And then your Sapphire is going to be 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. Again, take a little smidge off that back piece, and I'll show you why. Like I said, I'll show you why in a minute. So those are the blues that you'll need. This particular card is set up to have 1, 2, 3 inner spines, inner layers there, if you can see. And that's why this depth is a 1/2 inch. Now, if you chose to have only 2 layers, you would cut that depth by maybe 1/4 on each side. But that's how this one is set up, is to have 1, 2, 3 different little spines, plus you have the very back and you have the front. Okay. So once you have your basic shapes cut out, the next thing is to find your graduated circle die cuts, and you're going to die cut them. Okay. The way I found this easiest to do is you take your front piece, your Carolina that you've either stenciled on, or it could be a pattern piece of paper, whatever you want, and you adhere it to what is the front of the card. And let me show you how this base works. It basically folds a box, forms a box. So on the front of the box, you're going to adhere your lightest color. Then you will take the largest die and line it up in the middle of that front piece and run it through your die cutter. Okay, you'll come out with this piece. Okay, and again, here we go. So you can see in advance, this is your box. That's the front of your box. Okay, the next thing I would do is take your next darker color. This would be a full, I've already cut it, but imagine it's a full piece of paper. And what you want to do is line up your tunnels. So with this one, I'm going to fold. I think I forgot to tell you that on these pieces, you are going to score at 1/4 from each side. 1/4 inch on each side gives you your little flap. This is the flap that's going to adhere to the sides of the box card to make them stand out. Okay, so fold in one of those pieces and align it up with your crease in the front of your card. Okay, you will come up with this, although it's probably upside down. There we go. Oh, nope, there we go. Okay, you'll come up with this. And again, yours will be a full sheet because you haven't cut out your circle yet. So take your next graduated circle, you line it up on that inner sheet. I use washi tape to stick it down so it does not move around any. So use your washi tape. You're going to stick that to your solid sheet. You're going to take that solid sheet out of the inside of the card, and you're going to run that one through your die cut machine, and you will come up with this. The next circles are a little bit easier because all you're doing is lining up these pieces. You're not really lining up with the front page. So again, this back piece is a full piece, pretend, because I haven't cut it out yet. Let's do this. Okay, so you're going to line up your edges and your folds. Make sure your folds are lined up. You're going to take your next graduated die, you're going to line it up, washi tape it, run it through. Okay, and then the same with your final piece of even darker paper. You're going to, that's a full sheet, don't forget. You're going to line it up. You're going to put in your circle approximately where you want it, washi tape it, run it through your die cut machine, okay? So then you have your three layers that are cut out. Now I eyeball these, and you can see it's a little off on a couple of places. Maybe even it goes like this. Maybe that's better. You could certainly measure it out. I eyeball it, and really by the time you put it in real time in depth like that, I don't think anybody's going to notice whether you're off a centimeter or not. I don't even know if a centimeter is big. A fraction of an inch, let's just say that. Okay, and then your last piece stays solid. That's going to go in the back of your card, and you've already cut your front piece. So now you've got all your tunnels cut and ready to build. Okay, I find it easiest if I attach the back piece before I start building, and you do want to make sure that this back piece fits within the folds. That's going to be important when we go to fold it flat. So I usually do this just to make sure it's going to fit in there nicely. This is why we took off a smidgy instead of that 4 1/4, and then you take off another hair, because if we've cut this or creased these to be exactly 4 1/4, this isn't going to fit nicely if it is also 4 1/4 exactly. So you took off a little smidge. Okay, so I'm going to adhere that to the back, and you can choose to use the lighter or the darker. I'm going to use the lighter side, I think. Center that right onto the back of your card. I would probably kind of use this fold to my advantage to butt it up against there. Make sure your edges are lined up. And stick it down. Okay. Again, there we go. There we're building the base of our card. Okay. The next steps are just going to be building the layers. And I find it easier if I build from the inside to the back. And you can choose to use glue or tape on these. I tend to use glue because it gives me a little bit of working time. So I'm just going to run a little bit of glue along there. It doesn't take a whole lot. And then I butt this little flap up against the fold in the front of the card. I hope you can see this. I'm trying to do it by holding it, and it's not going to be easy, but we will get it done. Okay, so I've put the little flap right against the fold of that front of the card. Line up the edges. And once you have it in the spot you want it, if it stops wiggling around, adhere it down. Okay. So there you go. There's your first little window flap. That one I really think I was off on. Maybe I should have put that upside down, but it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Okay. So fold that guy down and go with your next one. This is how it's going to look. I like to just put it in there and make sure that I'm using the right side, because like I said, if I didn't get it exactly in the center, that's going to throw it off a little bit, and I think that's right. Okay, so put a little glue on the flap. You're going to line it up right next to the previous layer. Make sure your edges are straight, and you're going to fold it down. we've got so far. Okay. And the final flap. Fold those guys down flat. Put a little glue on there. Line it up to the previous layer. Line up your edges. Try to make it as straight as possible. Fold it down and make sure your final flap will also close. Okay. So now pretty much you have a book with all your different layers. Okay. And pretty much that's the way it's going to look. Isn't that cute? So now we're going to basically do the same to the other side. This side, I actually find it easier to put a little bit of glue or tape right there on each of those flaps. Fold this flap down. This flap is actually supposed to tuck up underneath there, but you want to be careful the way you build it so that it moves. So I'm going to put a little glue on each of these. This last one, I'm going to try and keep it as close up to the front as possible. Okay. If you fold this flap down and then fairly quickly try to scooch this other flap inside there while maintaining the maintaining the shape is the trick. You have to make sure you keep your distance on those properly. There we go. Okay. And then you glue this final flap. Like that. At this time, before everything sets up too good, I like to make sure that it will eventually fold flat, because that's the idea. We want to be able to send this, so you have to make sure it folds flat. Ideally, it would fold flat both ways. Oops. It doesn't always work out that way, so I usually just try to find the best way it folds flat and leave it at that. So with this one, it would be this way, because it seemed to lay a little bit better that way. Also, on some of these, you can see I did not line up the edges very nicely, and you can trim those up. Okay, but you can see as you open it, there's your box. The reason, again, I'm going to go back to the reason we took a little smidgy off those cuts at the edge was so that these layers can stand up as flat as possible without getting any wave or movement to them, if that makes any sense at all. If those layers are off just a little, they're going to bow on you. They are going to not sit straight. And that's not the end of the world. You see some of these are like that here. See how that's bowed? It just will give more dimension if those can stand up straight instead of being a little bowed like that. So just try your best to get that like that. But there's our base, and the rest is just decorating. Okay, ahead of time. Here is what I did. I spent pretty much a day stamping these little critters and coloring them and cutting them out. One trick is to line them all up on a big large block like this. I used this because I had 1-inch strips left over from my base. Because it's an 11-inch base, I have 12-inch cardstock. I had an inch left over, and so I stamped as many of these little guys on 1-inch strips as I could. You could also do it on a large piece of paper, whatever white daisy card scrap you have left over. So that's what I did. I colored them. I used Intense Black ink because I knew I was going to be either watercoloring or alcohol marker coloring. These I used are Tri-Blend alcohol markers and colored them in. As you can see, I went outside the lines because I'm going to cut them all out. So that really doesn't matter, and in fact it helps a little bit because if you're not exactly on the line, you still have some color instead of white showing on your cutouts. So that's what I did with those. As you can see, I have a whole bunch left here, and I also used stickles on some of them. Maybe on this one you can see the shine and shimmer on there used because I used the stickles. Some of the, maybe on the sandcastle you can see it too. Just gives it a little bit of extra pizzazz. It's really cute. So at this point you just start adding your elements to your card. And let's see if we can just throw a couple in there and I'll show you what we do. This is the part to me that takes the longest because I'm indecisive and it takes me a while to figure out how I want it to look. But I would just bring all my elements by me and start playing. And I recommend tweezers if you have them because it makes it a little bit easier. You can kind of place things in there and decide how you want it to be. The really cool thing about this card is the dimension that it gives. And so you want to think about that. You want things kind of hidden behind other things. The seaweed coming up in front of some of the fish. Some fish overlapping other fish. This guy in the middle, you'll see, he's actually kind of floating. And that's fun in this situation. I used a little piece of acetate. Some of the fish I adhered to the top of a layer, and some I adhered to the underneath side of a layer. It all plays into the dimension and depth that this type of card allows. So get creative and start building your card. I usually will start just kind of setting things out and deciding how I like it and realizing that it's kind of hard to tell right now because nothing's glued down and they kind of flop around and stuff. But I like to, pick up a fish like this and maybe say, I think I'd probably like him floating right there. So I will either put him on acetate and have him floating out in the middle, or I might just have him just like this, kind of peeking out from a layer like this. As you see, that's what happens. So that's how you start. You just grab something. I think I will put my little sandcastle to the back. So I'm going to throw some glue on him. You can use glue or tape, whichever works. It doesn't take a lot. And then it's also helpful if you can get your fingers between the layers like this and kind of separate them and place it down. Again, don't forget, what you really are after is that dimension. So if you can hide some of the pieces back behind another layer, place another item or element up in front of your layer, it's going to give it so much more interest. Like for this one, I might choose to put, let's just say, some of this coral right up in here, and it covers up the bottom of the bottom of the sandcastle there. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that. Again, you just choose your fish or your elements that you want to use. I will maybe put him back in here. I might use a lighter color fish instead of him, even though I like him. Against that dark, it might be nice to have a lighter color. Like that guy back in there. I think I'll put him down there. Oops. Again, just a little spot of glue. Place him down where you want him. See, I got a little spot of glue on there. I'm just going to wipe that off. Okay. And let's see. Let's take I like these guys. This guy swimming from the side might be cute. Maybe this guy swimming this way. Can you kind of have to play around and just decide? Sometimes if you want to have something in mind before you build your scene, that would work too. You know, this little guy. So let's go with, let's make a decision here. Let's go with this little guy that's kind of like an angelfish. I think I'll put him down low right on that. This layer here. Yeah, I like him down there. The seaweed is pretty important because these are things that they're going to be, you know, hiding behind basically, or adding a little bit of depth and dimension to your artwork here. I liked the stamp is simply this piece of seaweed and then these three are kind of together, but there's no base to it. I liked to give it a base because it's easier to adhere it that way to your creation, and it gives you something to glue to, like this. Oops, and I put that on the wrong side. Let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to wipe that off of there. I actually want to put this on the underside of this back of this layer. So what I really want to do is put glue on the front of this item. Okay, and then again, put your fingers in there, separate the layers out. Loosen him. Separate the layers out, and then put it in there. Hold it for just a second. Okay, I like that. And this little part, either you could have trimmed that up a little bit, or even better, find an element to put in front of there. Oops, like this little starfish that I just lost. So this is a little bit delicate work, but it's fun. It's really fun, and you can build your scenes however you want. So, I think we'll stick our little starfish there to cover up that base. And you just keep adding and adding and adding to your layers. I think my problem on most of these is knowing when to stop, because it's so much fun to add these layers, and the more the dimension is, the more fun it is to me. The more I can add in each of the layers, it's addictive and fun. Okay, So make sure you are building on both sides of your card. You want to kind of even things out around. It doesn't have to be equal, but it has to be balanced, I guess. But let me show you how to float a little guy in there. Like, I think this little guy is going to be floating right about here. Okay, so to do that, you take a small piece of acetate. This is, you can get these. I usually cut up packaging. If I have something that comes with a package with an acetate cover over it, I save it. It doesn't take much for this, so this is just a little bitty rectangle. In fact, I don't need all that. I'm going to cut a little strip of it off, right like that. I know it's hard to see on the video, but there it is. I'm going to, because I want this guy to be going this way, I'm going to glue him onto the acetate, and I found that glue works perfectly. He sticks and stays. I haven't had a problem with that. I'm going to glue him right on there. Oh gosh, I can't even see it though. Okay. That's not blurry. There you go. I want to clean off any little oozing that you have there. Takes about a second for him to stick on there. So now he's on this piece of acetate. And I'm going to decide where to put him here. Put a little dab of glue on the back of the acetate, or on the front of the acetate, and then figure out which layer I want him in. Whoops. Use my fingers up in there and hold them in. It'd be easier to do it this way. Hold it in place. It really only takes a couple of seconds. And there you have him swimming in the middle of your card. How cool is that? So adorable. So adorable. Again, I would just keep building, keep adding layers on each side. You can get to the, put a little treasure chest in there. There's all sorts of, I might just throw him on there. Let's do that while we're still here. So you see tuck elements in the front of layers, in the back of layers, and just keep building and building and building, and you will have the most adorable little tunnel card you have ever seen. And again, if you build your box right, it's going to fold flat, fit inside of a regular, what is that called, A2 envelope. And you have a sign here that you could add your sentiment to. I think the stamp set has, what, best fishes, make a splash, thank you, all of those, any of those you could add on there. So there you go. That's my tutorial. I hope you liked it. I hope you go out and make a tunnel card. Good luck, and I hope to see your creations posted out there to inspire everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.